Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
We are seeing a convergence of three stories: the pandemic, protests, and politics. All of it in Tulsa, Oklahoma. All of it with a side of TikTok trolling. That's right, from Australia to Great Britain, all around the world. Headlines about President Trump's rally falling short of expectations. All those empty seats. The crowds did not show up as expected. Why does this matter? Why is it a lead story? Because it matters to him.
And we expect to have, it's like a record-setting crowd. We've never had an empty seat, and we certainly won't in Oklahoma.
That was a lie. There are usually empty seats at his events, and there were lots of them in Tulsa. Trump set out to produce a television show, and he wanted to have a campaign relaunch spectacle there, but he fell short. Partly because folks are rightly concerned to be in a room with thousands of others during the coronavirus pandemic. And it seems that one of the other reasons why there were so many empty seats is a no-show protest. A no-show protest. This all started with a video on TikTok created by Mary Jo Lapp, who's being effectively called a TikTok grandma. She made a video more than a week ago urging viewers to go to Trump's site, sign up to attend the rally, but pointedly not show up at the rally. Her video was viewed tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of times, and then her video led to others. You had younger TikTok users going on posting similar videos. K-pop fans were on there as well, trying to sabotage Trump's rally. And look, it did seem to work to some degree. We don't know exactly how well, but Trump's campaign manager, Brad Parscale, was out there talking about how many people were signing up. You know, Trump was bragging that there were 1 million people RSVPing. They were gathering all this data about people they can use for the campaign. But apparently it was a bunch of kids, a bunch of teenagers signing up as a protest. Clearly, not everybody showed up in Tulsa. Maybe people heard the huge numbers and said they didn't want to go through the hassle of the crowds. It's unclear exactly what happened. There's multiple factors. We're going to go live to Tulsa in a moment. But first, I spoke with Mary Jo Lapp about her role in what's being called a no-show protest. So, Mary Jo, what happened?
I had educated myself on Black Wall Street and understood better why Black content creators on various social platforms were really upset and frustrated with the original plan of Juneteenth for the rally in Tulsa. Yeah. And I posted a video late Thursday night, the 11th, that was just sort of meant to be a frustrated rant. I had 1,000 followers on TikTok at that point. Most of my videos were seen a couple hundred times, maybe.
And then this went viral on multiple platforms.
Yes, by 7 o'clock the next morning, it had been seen hundreds of times and shared hundreds of times. And then the K-pop stands jumped on from Twitter. And when they get involved, you know it's getting serious.
So this idea is everybody's going to sign up for tickets, claim they want to attend the rally, but then, of course, not show up. How much of an impact do you think this online prank actually had in Tulsa yesterday?
I honestly can't tell you because these social media systems are generational. So when I shared a video, let's say my video was shared 700 times, but each of those people would have people sharing their copies of it. So that's 700 more people I never saw. So it's impossible to tell for sure just because of this generational impact that both Twitter and TikTok have. All I know is I was at a birthday party for one of my grandkids and my phone started blowing up with friends wanting to make sure I'd seen what was going on, and I had been paying attention.
Do you think this is how it's going to be from now on? Whenever the president holds a rally, there's going to be this attempt to prank him, to troll him, to trick him?
And I don't think it was just an issue of pranking him. I think you've got a lot of kids in the younger generation, 20-year-olds and teens, who are very aware. They're much more aware and much more self-educated when it comes to things like Black culture. So they're treating it now like it was a prank, but a lot of the messages I got from parents and from their kids were, I never knew this much about Black Wall Street. This is so sad. And so they're excited about the impact that they had. But I also think they're becoming much more aware of those marginalized communities, and they're learning to speak out for them.
Right, so really a form of protest. And what we've seen is a protest. And we don't know how much of an impact it had, but it clearly had some impact in Tulsa. Now, going forward, you're the so-called TikTok grandma. How are these platforms changing the way you interact with the world? Like, how has this changed your life?
I have had a lot of teenagers reach out and say that they don't feel supported by their parents because they have different political ideologies than their parents do. And so they've asked me as an adult, how should I talk to my parents to get them to understand where I'm coming from? Which I think that's a powerful question for teenagers to be able to ask someone who's not emotionally invested in their relationship. But I think social media has made it very clear. I posted one video and it got shared way more times than I could have done anything with it. And I think that's a very careful lesson that we all need to be aware of. Is number one, I had no intention of going viral. So there's the lesson, be careful what you post, because you never know. But I also think it definitely has created this huge sense of community. There's a lot of posts all over my social media of, we did it. And kids who aren't even old enough to vote in this upcoming election feel that they have had a voice and a chance to say, we don't approve of some of the things that are happening in our country, and this no-show protest was a way of making our voices heard.
And their voices were heard indeed. Let's get the inside view now from Tulsa with Estet Herndon, national political reporter for the New York Times. And for an outside perspective, how this is viewed everywhere else in the world, we're going to bring in Jasmine El-Gamal in just a moment. But Estet, you're in Tulsa. You saw the crowds. You saw the lack of crowds. What to you is the biggest headline from Trump's attempt at a campaign relaunch in Tulsa?
Yeah, I think the expectations that the campaign had set, which were admittedly sky high, were just simply not met. Not in the enthusiasm, not in the crowd size, and really not in the kind of intimidation that they were trying to give to Joe Biden and to Democrats. I was really struck earlier in the day by how the response from Black Tulsa, from liberal Tulsa, was to just let Trump have his day, not to have the protest, not to start that many clashes, because they didn't want to give him the spectacle he desired. And it turns out, as that day went on, that looked like a fairly smart play. We were not seeing the type of clashes that some conservatives had come to expect, and we also didn't see the crowds that they came to expect. That caused the focus to be intently on what was happening inside the arena, both the lack of enthusiasm that we saw in there and the message.
As you wrote in the New York Times website this morning, he played the hits. He played all those usual, kind of narratives. Did you take precautions, Estet? Did you wear a mask? Tell me about the precautions in the age of COVID-19.
Yeah, the Times has been really vigilant about us reporters who are out going through training around wearing masks. I had an N95 on. We had training about how to interact with people, and I was trying to keep that distance. But at the same time, some of these precautions are not going to be held up to when the person you're speaking to is not wearing a mask, and they're not doing that also. I mean, I remember looking at some of the surrogates who were shaking hands, kissing babies, taking selfies, and that kind of typical politicking that, frankly, I haven't seen in a long time. Not only has there not been events, but even in the ones I have gone to, I've seen Republicans in Georgia and South Carolina recently. They have taken some precautions. That was not true because the president has made it such a political act to do things like wearing a mask and social distancing. Some of his supporters were saying when they received the free mask, they just threw it right in the trash when they got in.
It is Monday, the 22nd of June of 2020, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is River City Hash Mondays, because we had quite a weekend. Not quite as large of a turnout in Tulsa as was expected. Oh no, there wasn't, but there was a lot of National Guard. Had to have those. And I actually heard of there was a head count. The fire department made a head count in the 19,000 seat capacity auditorium in Tulsa. Their head count, or their count, was 6,200. I think they were rounding. The tally of the head count at the turnstiles, 6,100, 100. What was it? 6,125. There we go. And apparently of those, over 1,000 were paid actors without masks. You couldn't pay me enough as a paid actor, even at union scale. And you know Trump doesn't pay union scale. I mean, if he's going to steal Tom Petty songs, he's not going to pay these actors union scale. But these actors are out there without a mask. So, over 1,000 paid actors. You got the cops. Almost 1,000 White House Trump campaign staffers. And apparently the only actual Trump supporters there were around 1,000. So if you're going to feed that small amount of group when you're expecting 1 million? 1 million. So I guess he got trolled. Yep. What time is it, kids? It's TikTok time. Thank you. Well, I say the kids are all right. And some people are actually blaming Soros. Soros must have funded TikTok to do this. Yeah, he's the Goldstein of all Goldsteins. The anti-Soros post, at least here in Southern Oregon Facebook groups, has increased dramatically since last week. The same old, same old. And you point out to these kids, because by and large they're kids. Oh, how old are they? Around 40. But, you reach a certain age. Kids in their 40s are like kids. I know they hate hearing it. But if you're going to start talking about me being senile and about ready to die, then I'll bring up the fact that you're just a mere kid. If you think that Soros is the puppet master of every liberal cause in the world, I wish he was. Man, could we get things done then? He's a pretty damn terrible puppet master if he's supposed to be the puppet master. And you bring up that it's, look, it's anti-Semitic to bring this up and to put Soros into some sort of weird puppet master role. And here's the history behind it. So first, you're accused of not providing the links when you say that you invoking Soros is anti-Semitic. So then you provide the links. And then you're accused of just being old. That's old stuff. No, it's happening right now. Yeah, we got these. Now I'm engaging with a faux intellectual. He probably thinks he's a little William F. Buckley Jr. But he thinks he wants to argue with me on some sort of faux intellectual level. It's really just pearl clutching is what it is. Projection of their own behaviors and pearl clutching that projection onto others. And they put words in your mouth, and if you don't correct them right now, that will grow into just a truism. So this one faux intellectual put words in my mouth accusing me of promoting violence because I said I was an anti-fascist. And I warned the little brat, you show me in my body of work, say for the last 50 years, I'm 65 now, from the time that I had my first public publication outside of a school publication. The first time I got published in an organ other than a school deal project was when I was 15. You show me where in any of my written work, any of my social activism that I've ever promoted violence. You can't find it because it's not there. I don't believe in it. I don't like the idea of breaking windows. No graffiti ever stopped a war. You know what did stop a war? Yeah. I know that the graffiti on the wall probably woke up a few people and then they got legislation passed. I'm sorry, but even Martin Luther King, whenever they say, what would Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and Malcolm X say? Well, they said that, we hate to admit it, but every time we have these like uprisings, something finally gets done. We try to work with you, we try to appease you, we try to give you what you want, and it's never enough. But once the graffiti's on the wall, no graffiti ever stopped the war? No, but it woke some people up, and then they went out and got some legislation passed. That's what stopped the war. And that is what will stop racism as well. Of course, according to this faux intellectual and his cohorts, we don't have hate in our heart. There's no racism. Oh, yeah? Well, how come the only black NASCAR driver had a noose in his garage at a NASCAR event? No hate in your hearts? Yeah. So we have Soros as the puppet master. We are the real anti-Semites. Oh, the old one where you can't call them anti-Semitic over Soros because Soros isn't a Semite. The Semites come from like Middle East. He comes from Hungary and like Europe. He's an Ashkenazi. Well, you know something. That's anti-Semitic right there, you idiots. Yeah, it's almost like saying you can't have gun control because you named that AK-40 800,000 wrong. It's not an assault rifle. Yeah, really? Well, it assaults my senses, and we're going to take it off the market, at least for private ownership. How do you like them apples? Okay, so the uptick has occurred, and that's because, well, what's the term? I think the professional term is the shit has hit the fan. Bill Barr tries to get rid of Berman, blows up in his face. Trump says, I don't know Bill Barr. I think he's a coffee boy. It's up to him. His thing. Well, Berman did step down when his assistant is going to take over. Now, let's look at this in, I don't know, shall we say, clear eyes? A golf buddy of Trump who already has a job at the SEC needs a job, so they're going to find him one running the Southern District of New York just on a whim. Please. Talk about an assault weapon. That assaults the senses. And Bill Barr is going to be John Mitchell. He is going to be. Count on it. Well, I know Joe's going to say we can't look back. We're not looking back. We're looking right here in the present, and we're going to be looking into the future if we don't hold these crooks, dare I say, traitors, to account. Trump is already claiming that foreign countries are going to print millions of ballots and mail them in. Where are they going to mail them in from? Sacramento? All of them? Please. The guy's such an idiot. He assaults the senses. How can anybody in their right minds believe that mail-in ballots, absentee ballots, are suddenly now the corrupt part of our electoral system when it's been these goddamn proprietary voting machines? And he's talking about mail-in ballots as being fraudulent when Ivanka got trademarks on voting machines. Please. Talk about an assault weapon. The Trumps assault our senses. I think we need some Trump control. And we're going to do it on the state level, apparently, huh? See how they like that. Well, there's not much we can do. I mean, we even have part of the news read today. I mean, even Nadler said that it's useless going after Bill Barr. Look at the graveyard of the Senate. The graveyard where democracy goes to die. Which reminds me, I looked quickly. I didn't dive into it. Apparently, some respected polls show McConnell way ahead. Because in Kentucky, I guess that Deripaska money goes a long way. They are going to suppress the vote. Deripaska, and I'm not just talking about Kentucky, Deripaska has, I got to tell you, some actual experience in suppressing votes for one person by the name of Vladimir Putin. And Trump's going, well, why can I do that? Because you're in a representative democracy, even the last vestiges of it. You know, when an animal's dying in the corner, that's when they're the most dangerous, Donnie. We might come back to life and recover from this. We might. But it's going to take some work and effort. Will we be successful? Well, that's what the great experiment's all about now. We don't know the results until the results occur. And right now, there are caustic elements within the test tube, eating the very vestiges, the gossamer tentacles of agreement that allow our representative democracy to exist. Will we recover? Can't make any promises, but we better get to work to recover. We're going to have to do a little bit of self-curing now, aren't we? Yes, indeed. And what's on the rest of the menu here? In the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. Well, at the top, Daddy Trump was trolled at his hate rally in Tulsa, and now Daddy is mad. He's very mad. A Tennessee newspaper is investigating a horrific End of Times ad paid for an extremist Christian group that somehow got into their print edition. Yeah, full of nuke mushroom clouds, the whole works. Yeah, they're really going now. After losing twice in the Supreme Court, the Trump administration now aims to end the Dreamers immigration program in 6 months. If they can't win in the courts, they're going to do it, I don't know, probably with the National Guard. That's all they have left. And because of the abject corruption of the GOP Senate, impeaching Bill Barr would be a waste of time. A total waste. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where Hungary's leading news website and major critic of President Viktor Orban is at risk of losing its independence because of, quote, external influence, end quote. Ooh, I wonder what that external influence might be. And in shocking news that shocks no one, Putin says he will seek another term if constitutional changes are passed. Which means they're going to pass. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page is our chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the leftish of the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will then hopefully find the link to our Patreon page. And if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, how about the cost of an espresso-type coffee drink? If you could send those funds our way, we can stretch those dollars beyond compare, pay our bills, fly under the radar, continue resistance broadcasting, as we've been doing for almost 10 years because of your generosity. in helping us fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended. So if you are already a recurring Patreon, thank you. And if you're thinking about becoming one, please do. You don't have to do it forever, but every little bit helps, especially now. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. And that's taken care of by Tom. Thank you, Tom. I, of course, take care of at Justice Putnam on. And I also post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime, and then get that out there on Twitter and, Facebook and all the other platforms. They just go out. It's auto. So go ahead, follow me there. If you would like to follow the show, do so at Cookbook West, and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. Yes, everywhere. They're everywhere. Ubiquitous, as they might say. Ubiquitous. Okay, it's Monday. Oh, happy Father's Day to everybody who has a dad. And if that's a trigger for you, sorry. And for those of you who are dads, and you always will be no matter what, I know from personal experience. Happy Father's Day to you, belatedly. Okay, I'll go ahead and mention it. I had a nice, quiet Father's Day. Didn't do very much. Did more cooking on Saturday. But that was because, it was still Juneteenth. In some parts of the country, it's Juneteenth even now. So, still a holiday. Might as well. It's summertime, even if we're sheltering in place. All right, let's take a look at this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. John Raby of the Associated Press brings us this first offering. A Tennessee newspaper said yesterday, Sunday, it is investigating what its editor called a horrific full-page advertisement from a religious group that predicts a terrorist attack in Nashville next month. The paid advertisement that appeared in Sunday's editions of the Tennessean from the group Future for America claims Donald Trump is the final president of the USA. The final. And features a photo of Trump and Pope Francis. What? It begins by claiming that a nuke device would be detonated in Nashville and that the attack would be carried out by unspecified interests from Islam. Oh, is that why they're attacking Omar so vigorously lately? The group also ran a full-page ad in Wednesday's edition of the newspaper, stating its intention to warn Nashville residents about next month's events so that they may be able to make a decision intelligently. Busloads of Antifa are probably bringing the nuke devices right now, and they're all paid by Soros. We're going to hear that pretty soon. In fact, I bet they're posting it right now. In a story on its website yesterday, Sunday afternoon, the Tennessean said the ad violated the newspaper's long-established standards banning hate speech. Really? Vice President and editor Michael A. Anastasi said the paper's news and sales departments operate independently. Really? When has that been? I mean, that changed. That changed everywhere. Clearly, there was a breakdown in the normal processes, which call for careful scrutiny of our advertising content, Anastasi said. Do you think? The ad is horrific and is utterly indefensible in all circumstances. But it's a full-page ad, and little newspapers need those full-page ads. It is wrong, period, and should have never been published, he said. It has hurt members of our community and our own employees, and that saddens me beyond belief. It is inconsistent with everything that Tennessean as an institution stands and has stood for. Sales executives ordered the ad to be removed from future editions. Well, is anybody's head going to roll for, we're just advertising guys. We don't have a brain. We just know how to sell. Okay, so the Council on Islamic American Relations spokesman Ibrahim Hooper said in a statement Sunday that while the group appreciates that the Islamic Islamophobic ad was pulled and an investigation has begun, we would urge the Tennessean to also implement updated policies and staff training, like get your sales department people in there and have them learn like what hate speech is, because apparently they have no idea. It was not immediately known how much Future for America paid for the ads. All you have to do is go to their rate card and you'll find out. According to his website, the group's ministry warns of so-called end-of-the-world Bible prophecies whose fulfillment is no longer future, for it is taking place before our eyes. A telephone message left with Bonnerdale, Arkansas-based Future for America was not immediately returned because they're probably at a Planned Parenthood terrorizing people there on a Sunday when no one's there. Terry Heaton, who is an author and retired television news executive, including the former executive of the 700 Club, said the advertisement claim is not supported in the Bible. This idea has been debated in church circles forever, and there has been plenty of historical accounts of those who shouted that the end is near. Yeah, about every 25 years, and now it's like every 15 days. Obviously, nobody has been accurate, so I think it's safe to say this is all nonsense. Yeah, I think it's safe to say it's nonsense. But is it safe? Anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this next amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and I'm going to have to put on my editor hat. Because apparently there are anonymous editors who fail to do some editing here unless Associated Press has a style manual that includes calling people illegal when they've done the equivalent of not stuffing quarters into a parking meter. Please. The Trump administration is determined to end the Dreamers program that protects immigrants who enter the U.S. as children within the next 6 months, the acting head of DHS said yesterday, Sunday. The Trump administration views the programs as unlawful, and the U.S. Supreme Court, which last week ruled against the Trump administration's plan to end it, did not disagree. Acting DHS Secretary Chad Wolf told NBC's Meet the Press. Let's put the emphasis on acting because this guy was not confirmed by the Senate. So what does he know? At no point in that decision did they say the program was lawful. They simply didn't like the rationale and the procedures that we used. You mean like every single time from the very first day you came into office? All of you? The U.S. Supreme Court on Thursday blocked Trump's effort to end the Dreamers policy, or DACA policy, put in place by former President Barack Obama, which protects roughly 650,000 immigrants from deportation. But Trump doesn't like that. He thinks it's unlawful because a black guy did it. What does he know? He doesn't know diddly about American civics. The decision upheld lower court decisions that found Trump's 2017 move to rescind the program was unlawful, but does not prevent Trump from trying again to end the program. Trump on Saturday said his administration would submit plans to end the policy, but gave no details because they don't know what they're doing. They're making it up as they go along. Asked if Trump had ruled out ending the program through an executive order, Wolf said the administration would continue to press Congress to find a solution. But he said the president, Trump, also directed DHS to look at carefully the Supreme Court ruling and the possibility of refiling its proposal with a different rationale. They keep losing in court. They keep coming back. And John Roberts said, you can keep coming back. I'm not going to get ahead in front of the president. That's kind of redundant, isn't it? ahead and in front? He's going to make that decision at the right time because Trump doesn't know what he's doing either, and whenever he makes it up, it'll be on a tweet in the middle of the night. But the department will be ready to make that call, he said, after Trump tweets it out for the whole world to see. Then the DHS will play catch-up, and then they're going to lose in the Supreme Court again. Joanna Chiaku and Lawrence Delvine of Reuters bring us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. U.S. Attorney General William Barr deserves to be impeached over the firing of a federal prosecutor who had been investigating Trump's personal lawyer, not Bill Barr. But the effort would be a waste of time, a leading Democratic lawmaker said yesterday, Sunday, and that would be Jerry Nadler, the House of Representatives Judiciary Committee chairman, who helped lead the Trump impeachment hearings last year, told CNN's State of the Union that the Republican-led Senate would block any effort to sanction Barr. He certainly deserves impeachment, but again, that's a waste of time because the Republicans in the Senate won't look at that, Nadler said. A Justice Department spokesman did not respond to a request for comment because, of course, Bill Barr didn't allow it. The firing of Jeffrey Berman, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, was the latest in a series of moves by Barr that critics say aim to benefit Trump politically and undermine the independence of the Justice Department, critics say. Nadler's Sunday comments underscore the challenges Democrats face in trying to rein in Barr with a Senate dominated by Republicans who are wary of criticizing Trump before the November 3rd presidential election. Nadler said his panel would nonetheless investigate Trump's firing of Berman after an extraordinary standoff over the independence of one of the country's most important federal prosecutors' offices. Berman has not shied from taking on figures in Trump's orbit and had been investigating his private lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, not his private lawyer in the Oval Office, Bill Barr. Not yet. U.S. Representative Adam Schiff, the lead prosecutor in Trump's impeachment, told NBC's Meet the Press the motivation for firing Berman was suspect. Quote, given the pattern and practice of both the president in seeking to use the justice system to reward friends, punish enemies, protect people he likes, and Bill Barr's willingness to carry that water for the president, end quote. Nadler said he was sure Berman would at some point testify in his committee's investigation of political interference at the Justice Department, launched earlier this year. The dispute began late Friday when Barr announced Berman was stepping down and would be replaced by U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission Chairman Jay Clayton, prompting Berman to issue a statement saying he refused to resign. Jay Clayton, is playing golf with Trump and is a regular golf buddy of Trump, and I guess he needed a job because the SEC just isn't enough. Of course, who is Clayton? Defended Deutsche Bank. Once again, I'll remind folks. He defended Deutsche Bank against money laundering charges, Russian money laundering charges. Only after Barr backtracked from his plan to handpick the acting U.S. attorney, allowing Berman's deputy Audrey Strauss to take the reins, did Berman agree to step down on Saturday. Well, you can rest assured that Ms. Strauss is going to be removed for some reason as well, and then this guy Clayton will be slotted right in. Some Democratic lawmakers, including Elizabeth Warren, have called for Barr's impeachment. The Senate, where Republicans hold 53 of 100 seats, would never vote for that. So the Democratic-led House would have to pursue alternative measures, Nadler said, citing his proposal to cut $50 million in funding from Barr's personal budget. Well, I'm sure he's got some Deripaska money that he could dip into when needed now, doesn't he? All right, let's get to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world. And we're going to finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, The Moss Show. In the new movie Shirley, Elizabeth Moss takes on the title, if not leading role, in a loose biopic about the 1950s horror writer Shirley Jackson, based on Susan Merrill's novel Shirley. As the movie begins, young academic Fred Nemser and his wife Rose roll up on their new assignment at Bennington College in Vermont, expecting to stay a few days with his supervising professor, Stanley, and his writer wife Shirley. The Nemsers are prevailed upon to stay on a bit to help with Shirley, whose problems only start with being agoraphobic. Shirley is brilliant and acerbic, insightful and mercurial, and wrecked that she is beginning work on a novel that we know will become 1951's Hangs a Man, about a Bennington student named Paula who had gone missing prior. Director Josephine Decker, who gave us Madeline's Madeline in 2018, focuses on the relationship between Shirley and Rose, who in Shirley's mind at its most twisted is commingled with the missing Paula from her work. We see conflict and camaraderie, a competition of wits, and the mutual struggle of being a woman, let alone an artist, in 50s academia. Along with this dynamic, we have that of Shirley and husband Stanley, played by a delightfully prickish Michael Stuhlbarg. This relationship brings to mind one from Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Fred, whose character is underexplored, is at once dominated by Stanley and in awe of him, watching as his mentor mingles amongst the co-eds and faculty. Decker's contrast of the claustrophobic and panoramic and use of handheld close-ups that seem almost wired to Shirley's mind make Shirley as frenetic a ride as you'll ever see for what's more of a character study than a story. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at Take2MovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. When you walk on a sandy beach, it takes more energy than striding down a sidewalk because the weight of your body pushes into the sand. Turns out, same thing is true for vehicles driving on roads.
The weight of the vehicles creates a very shallow indentation or, deflection in the pavement, and it makes it such that it's continuously driving up a very shallow hill.
Jeremy Gregory, a sustainability scientist at MIT. His team modeled how much energy could be saved and greenhouse gases avoided by simply hardening the nation's roads and highways. And they found that stiffening 10% of the nation's roads every year could prevent 440 megatons of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions over the next 5 decades. That's enough to offset 0.5% of projected transportation sector emissions over that same time period. To put those emissions savings into context, that amount is equivalent to how much CO2 you'd spare the planet by keeping 1 billion barrels of oil in the ground, or by growing 7 billion trees for a decade. The results are in the transportation research record. As for how to stiffen those roads, Gregory says you could mix small amounts of synthetic fibers or carbon nanotubes into paving materials, or you could pave with cement-based concrete, which is stiffer than asphalt. And it's worth noting here that the research was funded in part by the Portland Cement Association. This system could also be a way to shave carbon emissions without some of the usual hurdles.
Usually when it comes to reducing emissions in the transportation sector, you're talking about changing policies related to vehicles and also, driver behavior, which involves millions and millions of people, as opposed to changing the way we design and maintain our pavements. That's just on the order of, thousands of people who are working in transportation agencies.
And when it comes to retrofitting our streets and highways, those agencies are where you might say the rubber meets the road. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
For an expectant mother, taking care of her developing baby means taking good care of herself. One way she can do this is by ensuring she gets vaccinated. If a woman is or might be pregnant during flu season, it's especially important to get her annual flu shot, preferably before the end of October. In addition, women should be vaccinated against whooping cough during the 3rd trimester of each pregnancy. Failure to get vaccinated places both mother and baby at increased risk for serious complications of these infections, including hospitalization and even death. If you're pregnant or planning to get pregnant, ask your healthcare provider when you should get your vaccines. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Celebrate the Supreme Court's recent momentous LGBT decision.
I'm Lily Ledbetter, and this is a Civil Liberties Minute with ACLU attorney Bill Newman.
The court held in Bostock versus Clayton County, Georgia, that an employer who fires a person for being gay or transgender commits a violation of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits employment discrimination because of race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. The decision was 6-3. The case, actually there were 3 cases with similar facts, involved employers who fired longtime employees after the employee revealed that they were gay or transgender. The 6-justice majority opinion says, quote, "Judges are not free to overlook plain statutory commands. In Title VII, Congress adopted broad language making it illegal for an employer to rely on an employee's sex when deciding to fire that employee. We do not hesitate to recognize today a necessary consequence of that legislative choice. An employer who fires an individual merely for being gay or transgender defies the law." Time to celebrate.
The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1969. That was the day that the Cuyahoga River, which winds its way through Cleveland, Ohio, caught on fire. Cleveland was once the 6th largest city in the nation. During the early 20th century, the city had a booming steel industry. Clevelander John D. Rockefeller made the city a leader in oil refining. But after World War II, industries left strong union cities like Cleveland and Detroit. These jobs moved south and overseas, where wealthy industrialists could exploit workers in markets with weak labor protections. As a result, Cleveland fell on hard times. During the 1960s, the city lost 150,000 residents. As jobs left town, so did the workers. The once proud factories that lined the banks of the Cuyahoga River had brought jobs to the city, but they also pumped pollution into the waterway. When a passing train put off sparks, the river oozing with oil oil and debris caught fire. It was not the first time that the river ignited. Time magazine posted dramatic photos of the burning river, although the photos were actually from an earlier blaze. The pictures helped to fuel the growing environmental movement. They gave momentum to the passage of the Clean Water Act. The Cuyahoga was not the only urban river impacted by industry. The Time article described how, quote, Omaha's meatpackers filled the Missouri River with animal grease balls as big as oranges. Today, one of Cleveland's breweries sells a popular Burning River Pale Ale. The Burning River is part of the history and the folklore of the city.
Burn on, big river, burn on. Burn on, big river.
Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 64 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high about 98 or hotter. In fact, we have an active heat advisory in the area right now, and we should be bumping 100 or more through the rest of the week. Ouch! Sunny conditions prevail right now at the moment. Abundant sunshine, and is going to be hot. Winds out of the north at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Generally clear overnight with lows in the mid-60s. Winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And tomorrow, sunny skies, hot with a high near 100 with winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Confirmed coronavirus cases in Jackson County of Southern Oregon stands at 85. Those numbers should go up because they haven't been released from over the weekend yet. The grass pollen remains very high right outside the window here at the mothership in Rogue River. The air quality index in the Southern Oregon region is good at 25 parts per million, and that daytime UV index is very high at 9, so do take care if you have numbers in those ranges. Ooh. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.08 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles. And relative humidity is at 80%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 73 and sunny. Paris is 75 and sunny. Rome is 87 and partly cloudy. Kyiv is 83 and fair. Kabul is 88 degrees and fair. Hong Kong is 81 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 66 with a rain shower and a flood advisory. Let's see. Sydney, Australia is 50 degrees and clear. San Francisco, California is 55 and cloudy with fog. And New York is 85 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Even more anonymous worker bees and Reuters bring us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The editor-in-chief of Hungary's news website Index.hu said on yesterday, the outlet that has been a leading critic of Prime Minister Viktor Orban's government was at risk of losing its independence because of what it called external influence. Szybok did not give details in the statement, but the editorial team has complained since 2018 that a change in the ownership of an organization that handles its advertising had threatened its ability to report independently. Wow, that seems like to be a virus that's been going around. Index.hu is the largest outlet in Hungary, critical of Orban after a major shakeup in Hungary's media sector in recent years that left most news outlets under control of the government or under the control of pro-government business executives. We have been affected by an external influence that might lead to the disappearance of the newsroom, Dole said in the statement, signed by dozens of reporters who work for Index.hu. The statement said the fate of the news website would be decided in the coming days. The website has since September of 2018 published a gauge with 3 settings: independent, in danger, and not independent. On Sunday, for the first time, the indicator on the graphic had moved the signal to in danger. Orban has extended his influence over many walks of life in the Central European country during his decade-long rule. The EU has criticized him for policies it says threaten the rule of law by imposing party control over the judiciary, the media, and every academic institution.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Anonymous worker bees bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Ash Mondays. Vladimir Putin is considering running for a new term as Russia's president. If voters approve constitutional changes that would enable him to do so, which means they're going to make him do so because somehow the votes always come up in his favor. How is that possible? Russia will hold a nationwide vote from June 25th to July 1st on proposed changes to the Constitution, including an amendment that would allow Putin to seek 2 more 6-year terms as president when his current mandate ends in 2024. He keeps doing this over and over and over. Opponents say the reforms are designed to allow Putin to keep power until 2036 and amount to a constitutional coup. The Kremlin says they are needed to strengthen the role of Parliament and improve social policy and public administration. I do not rule out the possibility of running for office if this option comes up in the Constitution. We'll see, Putin was quoted in an interview with state TV that was shown in Russia's Far East before airing in Western Russia. I have not decided anything for myself yet, which means he's decided. The changes that Russians will vote on are already approved by Parliament and the Constitutional Court would reset Putin's presidential term tally to 0. He would not be able to seek a new term under current constitutional limits. The changes are widely expected to be approved in the vote because that's how it works in Putin's Russia. Putin has been in power for 2 decades, is now 67, suggested the hunt for a candidate to succeed him could become a distraction if he does not run again. If this doesn't happen, then in about 2 years, and I know this from personal experience, the normal rhythm of work of many parts of government will be replaced by a search for possible successors. We must be working, not looking for successors. Well, indeed. Okay, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, and you know we will meet up tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.